it's nice to see some old friends and maybe make some new ones. It's one of the blessings of Alcoholics Anonymous and getting to hang out with different people all the time, and I'm grateful for that. I want to kind of make a little assumption here, and that is that everybody can believe that I used to drink too much, right? That I have a drunk-a-log. It's not very exciting. I will tell you this much about it in our book. It says that often when we drink, we are either dangerously or disgustingly antisocial. I am not very dangerous, but I am kind of disgusting. I'm a pee my pants, knock stuff over, say inappropriate things at the wrong time, kind of a mess of a drunk, right? But I'm not the dangerous type, but I'm kind of gross when I drink. And I drink for a long time. I started drinking when I was about 13. I had my first drink, and 9, my first drink. I was a heavy, continuous drinker by 13, and by the time I got sober, I was a disaster. I'm one of those people that got a good break early on in life, and at 19 years old, I got picked up by QVC, if you know who they are, to be a guest host for a couple of different products, and I became an executive for a major corporation at 20, and I was supposed to be a superstar, right? I was on a rocket ship to success, that young, having all that money and all that influence, and I drank my way out of it. By the time I was 23, they fired me. They told me they thought it was inappropriate to have an alcoholic crack addict as the national spokesperson for the company, which I thought was a little bit of an overreaction, but it was their world, and they gave me the boot. At 25, I can't really hold a job. 25, I've gone from being this hot shot to sleeping on friends' couches and moving into my dad's house and doing something wrong and being thrown out, and sleeping in my car and moving in with another friend on the couch until Dad let me back in, and I'm just bouncing along the bottom of life. And middle of my 25th year, I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time. And I was introduced because I went to detox. I was broke and I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. And I'd heard of AA through a friend, and I called the hotline. And this guy told me that if I met him at a meeting, he would be able to get me into a detox that night. And I got to be honest, I didn't really know what that was, but the only thing he had to explain to me was it was a place I could go for 7 days, and that they would feed me and let me sleep there. And I was born and raised in a Jewish family, and the only real part of the Jewish culture that rubbed off on me is that I don't homeless well. And so when he suggested I could get a free place to live, I'm like, man, I'm in, right? So I go to this detox, and I got some hope there. I got to be honest, it wasn't what I expected it to be. I got some hope because, first of all, there were people, other clients that had been through the detox many times, right? And they kind of knew the ropes, and they helped me. And they showed me what to do. And then there were people that would come in from Alcoholics Anonymous and bring panels in. And they would talk. And the way that it felt to me was that for the first time in my life, there were people who had felt like I felt, that seemed like they were living good lives. And it gave me hope. What they said was, they said things like, they used to drink, and they used to get in a lot of trouble, and they promised that they were never going to drink again, but every time they made that promise, they would drink again. And they didn't understand why, but this is what happened to them. And then they found Alcoholics Anonymous, and they met these friends, and they made these new relationships, and they discovered a way that they could live and have a good life without drinking. And I don't know, I was hopeful. I thought, maybe there's a way for me to do something. I had just recently lost my last corporate gig. I thought to myself, maybe these people can teach me how not to drink, or maybe they can teach me how not to get in trouble when I drink. I can clean up, and it'll be an easy path for me to get back into corporate America. I'll go be a spokesperson for a different company. I'll create my own infomercials. I'll get back in that business. I still had a pretty good name in that business, and I had hope for my future. I came out of that detox, and they put me in a halfway house. And again, I wasn't mad at these people at all. They fed you. They gave me time to get a job. They didn't demand money right away. AA members would come in again and bring these meetings, and there was hope in these meetings. You could smoke, and people would bring cigarettes. They had rolling papers and tobacco free in the house. That was supplied by the house. But AA members would bring, like, brand name smokes, and it was just like this. I've always been a bit of a hippie. I'm a deadhead. It was like a commune, right? It was like I'd found my people. I tell you what's weird, though, and this is what I didn't expect and what I didn't understand. I thought that if I got sober, my life would instantly make sense. I thought that because of my experience, right? It's like the old cliche. I didn't get in trouble every time I drank, but every time I got in trouble, it seemed like I'd been drinking, right? It was obvious to me that alcohol and drugs, and I don't mean to upset the old-timers when I say drugs. I have a friend of mine that I think says the funniest thing, and I relate to it, so I'm going to repeat it. He says that when they first offered him that first line of coke or that first hit on the joint, if he knew he'd be asked to speak in AA, he would have said, no, I can't do any drugs. I don't want to upset the old-timers. But he didn't know, and I didn't know either, and so we partook a little bit. But I only have one disease. My disease is alcoholism, and by treating my alcoholism, it seems like my drug addiction got took care of all at the same time automatically, and so I don't have to worry about other diseases. AA, although it is only for alcoholism, seems to have cured a whole bunch of isms that I suffer from. So I'm grateful for that. But it was obvious that every time, the trouble in my life, it wasn't obvious that alcohol was the cause of it. It was obvious, though, that too much alcohol was the cause of it. It wasn't obvious that drugs were the cause of it. It was obvious that too much drugs was the cause of it. But it did seem like if I could quit that stuff, my life would be great. But plus, I'd been hearing it a lot. I'd had bosses that would say, Sheldon, you're a really good employee, and you do a really good job, and your numbers are really good, and we really like you. But my goodness, man, every time you go out and start drinking with the boys on a Thursday night, we don't know if you're coming in on a Friday. And when you show up at work still hungover on Monday, my God, man, you smell of alcohol. If you would just not drink so much, you'd be a star employee. But unfortunately, you do, and we've warned you 3 or 4 times already, and so we're going to have to let you go, right? So I'm being told by bosses. I'm being told by girls. I'm being told by my dad. I'm being told by, 2 judges and a bunch of police officers. It's like anyone in my life that has any authority, whether it's assumed or I've given it to him, but anybody that could say something to me and I would listen, it's always the same thing, Jesus Christ, you did that again. What's the matter with you? I just bailed you out last month and you're coming to me again for money. My God, you're late again. My God, you didn't show up again. My God, what's the matter? And it comes down to this. If only you didn't drink, your life would be great. And you combine being told that and then the sneaking suspicion that you get from living in the middle of the whirlwind, I was pretty sure if I didn't drink, my life would be good. But this is the surprise. I quit drinking, and something happens to me that is really... If you ever try to explain this to a non-alcoholic, they just don't get it. It doesn't compute for them, right? Like the book says, where it talks about the phenomenon of craving, and we're going to talk about the phenomenon of craving. It only ever occurs in the average, in the alcoholic. It never occurs in the average temperate drinker. So you can't explain that to him. You can't explain to him the spiritual disease, the uncomfortability. But when I quit drinking, it's like the air gets thicker. You know what I mean? It's like the vibe. It's like the energy. It's like the atmosphere becomes difficult. It becomes cold. I get filled with anxiety, and I don't know why, but I just do. I worry about everything. I'm future tripping about what I think my life's going to be like, and what's going to happen, and what they're going to say, and what they're going to do, and how it's going to work out. And I get obsessed with it, and it gets on me, and I can't shake it. I'm constantly thinking about it, and I never think about good stuff, right? When I sit on the couch and start to think about my life, it never spirals up into wonderful. It always spirals down in like a weird helter-skelter into anxious depression. And I'm thinking about the past, and I only have two feelings about the past. One is that you screwed me, and the other is that I was a jerk. I mean, I'm not looking back on the past thinking about, I was really lucky to be raised by those people, right? I'm thinking about my dad left when I was 2, and if my dad can't love me, you can't love me either, and I must be a piece of crap, and that must be my fault. My mom screamed and yelled a lot, and there was no love in the house. It was very confusing, and if mom can't love me, why should you? And why did I have to get raised by those people anyway? And we were poor, and I didn't deserve to be poor. And you know what? I was no good. I was a thief. I stole from my mom. I was, blah, 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 blah. And so I got all this, stuff in my head, and it just, and I'm thinking all this stuff, and I'm stuck in this mope, right? Mope. And then I get the voice in my head. You know the one. Have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. You can have a drink. It's no big deal. Sheldon, just have a drink. You know what? It's been a while since you've had a drink. You deserve it. What has it been, 14 days, for God's sakes? No one should go 14 days without a drink. You can have one. You deserve one. You could probably handle it now. Just have a drink. You're a piece of crap. You're no good. You're worthless. You're never going to stay sober. And I'm sitting in the middle of this, and I'm supposed to be feeling better. I'm not drinking. But I tell you, I can't tell anyone. How could I tell anyone how I feel? My dad I'm so proud of you, kid. You're doing good for the first time ever. What am I going to say to him? Yeah, Dad, but I'm probably going to go do some dope in about 4 hours, because if it feels like this, I'm going to blow my goddamn brains out. I can't say that to him. And I'm so grateful that I'm sober. I came to AA, and I tell you, God just loved me. I've been touched by the wings of the angel Bill Wilson and St. Bob Smith, and I am just, oh my gosh, welcome home. You make me want to slit my wrist. I can't stand it. I can't. So what am I going to say to you? I'm fine. How are you? Fine. Fine. I'm fine. You're fine. I'm fine. Fine. We're all fine. Fine. And so I can't stand it anymore. And I just listen, I don't want to, I have no intention of burning my life to the ground. I don't intend to burn my life to the ground. But I got to get a little relief. I'm like an old school pressure cooker, with a little valve on top. Mm-hmm. Psst. It's all I'm looking for. Just a little relief. And so, like Lily was joking about before the meeting, right? I make a plan. And it's a good plan. I'm not going to get drunk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out. I'm just going to have one. Maybe 2. 3 at the most, no more than 4. Right? Just to take the edge off. It is a great plan. I want to be like that guy in the movie from the 40s and 50s. The guy in the light gray suit that's been working all day at the office, comes home to his wife. She's been staying at home mom all day, and she's got dinner prepared, and he walks in with his briefcase, and she's been watching out the window. She sees him coming in. She opens the door. She says, "Hello, Harold. How are you today?" He goes, "Oh, my God, Martha, it was a terrible day at the office. I really need a martini. And she goes, here it is, honey. She's already got it poured for him, right? She hands him the martini. He takes a sip of that martini. Maybe he has a second one, and he relaxes, and that's all he does. And he's had his 2 martinis, and he's taken away the pressure of the day. He's been washed from him. And then he goes and helps the kids with the homework, maybe watches a little news, goes to bed, and puts that light gray suit back on so he can visit the office again tomorrow. I want to do that. The problem is, somewhere between the first and second martini, I'm on the phone to the dope man. Somewhere between the first and second martini, I'm seeing if I've got enough for 6 or 7 martinis. Somewhere between the first and second martini, regardless of how serious I am about 1, maybe 2, 3 at the most, no more than 4. Somewhere between the first or second martini, I change my mind. I change my mind. And this is what's confusing. Because when you talk about the phenomenon of craving, and you tell me that I will drink against my will, I have to tell you, I have never, ever had a drink that wasn't my idea. So when you say that I drink against my will, you confuse me, because I've never said, no, I don't want this drink, and something's forced it down my throat. Every drink I've had, every drug I've taken, every bad decision I've made, I made that decision. I said yes. So the phenomenon of craving shows up in my life in a sneaky way. It shows up as I changed my mind. And it doesn't matter what the consequences are. It doesn't matter who I've promised. It doesn't matter what I've said. I will change my mind every time. So I'm trapped because I have 2 things wrong with me. The first thing that's wrong with me is in a state of abstinence. I will be driven by uncomfortability. I will be driven by feelings of inadequacy, shame, depression, anxiety, emptiness, loneliness, frustration. I will be driven in a state of abstinence to take the very thing that I know will kill me, to drink. I went in and out for 3.5 years. I probably had 100 sobriety days. And every one of those sobriety days had one thing in common. As physically sober as I am right now, I thought it was a good idea to drink. As physically sober as I am right now, I decided it was a good idea to drink. Driven by restless irritability, discontentedness. Driven by the 100 forms of fear. Driven by what it feels like to be abstinence, to drink again. So in 1996, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous. It was not my worst drunk. I wasn't in the most trouble. I wasn't the most broke. It wasn't the worst drunk. I was tired. I didn't expect to get sober. Why would I? I've been doing the dance for a while. I didn't expect to stay sober. I just was there to kind of take a break. That's what AA had become for me. It wasn't to get sober, it was where I went between relapses. That's what AA was. AA was the place I went between relapses. It's almost like the people that I was getting high with would have more of a right to say to me, what, are you kidding? You know, how long are you going to stay there? Than the people like nobody expected me to be gone long. Like, oh, you're going to go visit those friends. Oh, you're going to go visit those friends, right? Because the guy came into the noon meeting, and he didn't normally go to the noon meeting. The guy came into the noon meeting who was to become my sponsor for the first 20 years. Many of you know him. His name's Bob D. And that man saved my life. He shared in that meeting that day something that I'd never heard before. It must have been said before. There's nothing new in AA. There's only we say the same 20 things in different ways over and over again, right? So we're not very creative, right? There's only one thing that we say, but what he said was this. He said that although when he drank he got in trouble, and although when he drank he caused problems, he said he believed his alcoholism started where the bag and the bottle ended. That when he said he suffered from alcoholism, what he meant was he suffered from sobriety. and he had found a way in Alcoholics Anonymous to treat sobriety well enough to where he didn't have to get driven back to drinking. That the idea of Alcoholics Anonymous was, if you like, drinking and not drinking are equally painful. Sometimes drinking is more painful, sometimes sobriety is more painful. He said that he used Alcoholics Anonymous to lower the pain of sobriety enough so it never got as bad as drinking. So although it wasn't perfect, it allowed him to stay sober because it lessened the pain of sobriety. He didn't use those words, but what he did say was he talked about suffering from sobriety, and what I've learned that to mean, that what we do here is we lower the discomfort of sobriety enough to allow us to stay, because it will never get as uncomfortable as the memory of our last drink if we are willing to hold on to that memory through work with others. The steps were interesting for me, and most of you have heard me talk about this. The steps were interesting for me because I was kind of a militant, agnostic, atheist, quasi-Buddhist Jew that knew that God was a lie, and I struggled with the steps. And I'm not going to repeat that story because we become like a broken record, and you've heard it before, but I want to talk a little bit about my current stretch in sobriety. It's been an interesting journey. I'm a guy that for the first 18 years of my sobriety, I was sprinkled with pixie dust. I could not do anything wrong. My life was a rocket ship. It was a fantasy. It was a story. People just get so mad. Oh, Sheldon got promoted again. Oh, Sheldon bought a bigger house. Oh, Sheldon got a new car. Oh, Sheldon's going on vacation. I mean, it was ridiculous. I met a girl. We got married. We were married for 20 years. We had a son. Our son's beautiful and perfect and healthy. I became an executive general manager of a large dealership group, and I will tell you that if you don't know about the car business, it pays about 5 times more than you think it does. It was a really good gig, and I did very, very well. And the marriage fizzled, and it wasn't her fault. I don't think it was my fault either. I think we just grew apart, and but I made a bad mistake. If I was to have done the honorable thing, I probably would have ended the marriage a couple of years before. There was no intimacy, no love. We both are happier not married. But I didn't have the nerve to do that. And, pretty girls have a lot of power, and a pretty girl smiled at me, and I did the dishonorable thing, and I cheated on my wife after 20 years, and that's what caused the end of the marriage. And I'm not sharing that with you for any reason other than that maybe someone in the room with something they're ashamed or embarrassed about, and they don't know if they can stay sober through it, and I can tell you that you can. We don't shoot our wounded here. You can make mistakes and stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, provided you're willing to own and admit your mistakes. I'm a mistake guy. We went through that divorce, and at the same time I opened a business with a guy who I had no business being in business with, and that was a very ugly and difficult time, and I ended up buying him out of the business, but it was another struggle on top of the divorce. The pandemic hit, and that was difficult for all of us. We all struggled. I had a business on life support, and if you had pre-existing conditions, that made COVID worse, and my business had pre-existing conditions. And so now I've got this divorce, I've got this ugly business partnership, I've got this public embarrassment in A because of the divorce, I've got my business is failing, and then I had a stroke, and I had a seizure, and I broke my back, and I was bedridden. And it was an interesting time. It was an interesting time. And I'm laying in bed in this apartment that I don't know if I'm going to keep, worried about this business that I don't know if it's going to survive, worrying about my back, not knowing if I'm ever going to walk again because the stenosis in my spine is so severe that they're not sure, and they won't fix it. They won't do the surgery because I had a stroke and they didn't know why. And they were afraid the anesthesia would kill me if I went under major surgery, strokes and seizures are bad things to have prior to surgery. So it's a dark time. But I'm well trained in AA. And I'm an active everyday member, and I'm sponsoring a lot of guys, and I've got a connection with God. And I'm laying in this bed. And I go into prayer. And I tell God the honest truth. I tell God I'm scared. And the thing that I was the most scared of, and I don't know if anybody that has family in a wheelchair or is in a wheelchair themselves would be insulted by this. I don't mean to insult anybody. This was my fear. I didn't mind the idea of being in a wheelchair. I'm kind of lazy, right? And having somewhere to sit all the time wouldn't bother me. But I wouldn't be able to wipe my own bum, and I didn't know how I'd go to the bathroom. And it really was freaking me out. It was freaking me out that I would have to, right? I didn't know. And this is how I went into prayer in this fear. I got this weird tingly feeling. And the room seemed to change color. It seemed to go purpley indigo. And I felt peace. It was a weird experience. I've had a couple of physical, spiritual experiences in my life. This was one of them. And I got to breathe for the first time ever in this period with all this going on. And Guy's sponsor afterwards asked me to define more clearly what that was. And this was all I could come up with. When I was brand new, there was a guy called John who was also pretty new, but he was kind of like a bully. And he begged me in the corner, and I started crying when he attacked me. And he said, "What do you want out of AA, kid? What do you think you're going to get here? What do you want out of AA?" You know, that kind of a thing. And I started crying. I didn't know what to say to him. If I could have answered him, what I would have said to him was, "John, I want to know that AA works. I want to know that if I come here and do this hokey crap, this stupid stuff, this joiner stuff, I want to know that AA works. And in order for AA to work, what that's going to have to mean is that God's going to have to be real. So I guess what I want to know is I want to know that AA works. And I want to know that God is real. That's what I want." I couldn't say that to him. But laying in that bed, all my fear disappeared. I knew it was going to be difficult. But I knew I was going to be okay. And how did I know it was going to be okay? Because AA works. And because God is real. That's how I knew. I knew that when my dad died, I'd gotten through it because I had AA in my corner. I knew that when my wife, or ex-wife now, we have one son, we saw 4 heartbeats. 3 babies didn't make it. And I knew in those moments that God was real. I'd had another health scare back in 2012 where I had a surgery with complications and I survived that. And I knew God was real. See, I guess the one thing that time gives you more than anything is you've been in the ring before and you've been punched before. And if you're new, the first couple of times you get punched, you don't know what I know. And that is that you get up off the mat and it's okay. And how do you know? Because AA works and God is real. And I knew that laying in that bed. My business survived the pandemic. In fact, I'm at the office today. But we're not going to survive the end of April. It's over. We know it's over. We're making plans. We're severing relationships. We'll be closed by the end of April. And I'm not afraid. Now, I should be. If I were an intelligent man, I would be terrified. I don't have a lot of money. I'm 56 years old. They're not hiring old hag car guys, right? I mean, most likely it's going to be really interesting. In fact, if you have a spare room, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. It's going to be fine. How do I know it's going to be fine? Because I'm well practiced. And I know that AA works. And I know that God is real. And I'm not afraid. I'm very interested. My sponsor is an interesting cat. He gave me this thing that I want to share with you. And what's funny is I'm a big book guy. Anybody knows me, I'm a big book guy. If it ain't in the big book guy, I don't want to know. This is not in the big book, but it's been really helpful to me. One time he had me take a little 3x5 card and fold it into 4 columns, right? And the first column was write down what's imperative. The next column was write down what's important. The next column was write down what's interesting. And the next column was write down what doesn't matter. And I wrote it out, and of course I did it wrong. I mean, in imperative, I put stay sober, right, and my health and my son, right, and in important, I put my career and my friends, my relationships, and interesting, I put my hobbies, and, right, AA travel, and doesn't matter is, you know, what so I'm going to hand it to him, and he starts laughing. He goes, no, it's completely wrong. And he had me do it again. And in imperative, he had me write stay sober. Nothing else in your life is imperative. You have a deadly disease that wants to kill you. Nothing else matters other than staying sober. Nothing. Column 2, what's important? The tools that are required for you to stay sober. Nothing else is important. Meetings, sponsors, sponsees, knowledge of the big book, service work, a working cell phone. These are the tools of sobriety. These are important. What's interesting? Your son, your health, your job, your relationship. Everything else is interesting. Now, some things are more interesting than others. My son's health is more interesting than whether or not I go to Aruba, right? But they're both interesting. My son's health is more interesting. My future in my work life is very interesting. But it is only interesting. God will take care of it. It doesn't matter. As long as I do the imperative, stay sober, and I focus on the important, the tools of my sobriety, everything else will always work out. What's none of my business or doesn't matter? My opinion about those things. My opinion about those things does not matter. I have tried of late to live my life with a certain perspective. And it's a changed perspective, a different perspective of step 2. I'm not trying to rewrite the steps. Step 2 is step 2. But I'll tell you what I've been trying to do lately. And it has been of great help to me. When I was new, and I don't know if they did this in your home group, but when I was new, and you would talk about step 2, they would say something that I think was very helpful when I was new. They would say, break step 2 down into I came to believe. You show up with nothing. And you stay a little while and you awaken. And then after a while, perhaps you'll start to believe in a power greater than yourself. And it's effective. But I will tell you, I don't like it as much anymore because it's passive. It's like getting Alcoholics Anonymous by osmosis. And I don't think you get Alcoholics Anonymous by osmosis. You don't get sober because you sit next to sober people. You get sober because you do what sober people do. There is no, you can't catch sobriety, right? They go, well, you come here, I hope you catch alcoholism. Well, you can do that because you catch it through the years. But you can't catch sobriety. You have to act like a sober person to get sober. So I don't look at step 2 that way anymore. I like to look at step 2 as an action step. It says, I came to believe in a power greater than myself. I believe it to be a statement of purpose. Step 2, I believe, tells me why I'm here. Why are you here? I came to believe. It is what I am doing here. The action I will take here is the action of a person looking for belief. I came here searching for, seeking, hoping to get belief. I came to believe. Like if you were going to go to the grocery store and the guy said, why are you here? And you'd say, I came for the eggs. Well, the eggs, sir, on the back aisle. I came to believe. Well, sir, belief is at the other end of step 9 and is polished with 10, 11, and 12. Good luck. I hope you find it. Take step 4 to step 5. Take a left at step 6. Do as much of 7 as you can. 8 and 9, well, you'll put those to the side and work on them for a long, long time. And when you hit step 10, right at the end, you'll find belief. welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? It is a statement of action. It is a thing that I'm doing. What are you doing? I'm coming to believe. You know, I got a friend of mine who talks about this, and it's hysterical the way he does it. He says that you've ever noticed how when a newcomer who's lit up, right, the new guy that's not the mopey new guy, but the new guy that's, Mr. Pink Cloud, right? He'll share at the meeting, or Miss Pink Cloud, she'll share at the meeting. Oh my God, I had such a wonderful day today. I was on my way to work, and I was running a little late. I wasn't sure if I'd be on time, and I was very stressed because I'm not sure if my boss likes me or not. But then I saw a magpie. And my grandma, who bless her soul, she's been gone a few years, used to love magpies. And I knew it was my grandma telling me to relax and that everything was okay. And God is so beautiful that he sent me a magpie to remind me of my grandma. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Or the guy, shares, I was on my way somewhere and I had no cigarettes. I was broke. I turned the corner. I found an entire half a packet of cigarettes, and God knows I won't stay sober without cigarettes. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And the question is, at 27 years sober, why is God sending the new people all the miracles, and I don't see him anymore? And the answer is because I'm not looking. Why are you here? I came to believe. That's my purpose. When I go to my meeting tonight, I'm going to go to a book study and share with a bunch of homeless guys at a treatment center. And why am I going? I am going to believe. That is my purpose. Is that my purpose in AA? Because I tell you, for a while it was, why are you here? I came to judge. That's what I would have said if I told the truth. I came to listen to the speaker so I could tell my friends later how crap he was. That's why I'm here. I came to stare at girls. That would have been step 2, right? Came to stare at girls in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm right. I mean, why am I here? And I believe that if I will actively look for God, if I will come to believe, if I will act as if there's a power greater than me, than any problem behind me, if I will know the truth, and the truth is that AA works and God is real, if I will know the truth and act like it, I believe I'll survive anything. And surviving's not enough. I believe that I will find peace and contentment and joy in anything. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I am. I can't imagine what it would be like to have gone through some of the things I've been through from 2018 to now alone. There are people who have been through what I've been through and worse alone. And I have not been alone. I'm sober 27 years. It took me a year or so to find my tribe. I have not been alone in over 25 years. And for that, I thank you, and I'm grateful to you. And I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I hope you do too. Thanks for letting me share.